So I am making another video because more hair fell out. Dude, my hair, it is so bad. Chunks here. Chunks of hair here. Chunks of hair here. Um, Chunks of hair. I mean, like, it's like 90% of my hair. I don't even know what I'm saying. Chunks. I have alopecia is what it looks like. But it's not. It's the tear stuck in my head, burning the follicles and making my hair fall out. And today they did this because I made a video stating that the intention of the terrorists are to make their victims look like violent criminals, to convict them for that, for something of that nature, to defame them and to destroy any opportunity to find employment with medical, that it offers medical insurance, and at the same time offers little to no little to no sorry okay sorry and destroy your opportunity to qualify for housing assistance or any, I mean, I would assume that's the two. I think you can still get food stamps. They want to steer you away from having kids because they essentially want to murder you, and they don't want to have to make it obvious that they've been trafficking kids. Like their parents trafficked me as a child, and now their kids my age and maybe older slightly are these grown adult terrorists talking in my head today, who feel entitled because it was their parents' obligation. They were obliged by the law to come forward, and if their kids spent one dime of the terrorists' earned money that they made, or earned or made, terrorist stolen money that they made, that their kids would then essentially be put on the terrorist watch list. And so they're in my head because they wanted the money, their kids, and they don't want to let it go, and they didn't want anybody of my age to have kids. So friends of mine and friends of my sisters between the ages of 18 to 40 all died before having kids and had minor, small infractions, but it was like it's still considered criminal. Like a little hit and run is considered, even if it's minimal, it's considered a criminal offense. If you have, not to say that you should, but that's what the terrorists, that's what they're after, is either small hit and runs, maybe a drug infraction, theft. I would assume like all of the above. Several traffic violations to show you're a reckless driver. To show that, and then to other criminal offenses that they're after, or making sure their victims are convicted of are little small spats, because they don't want them spending too much time in prison, because too much time in prison means the government's coughing up money for it. Excuse me. And the terrorist job, essentially, not to be terrorists, obviously, is to come forward with any reports of criminal activity before they occur, or suspicion of. Otherwise, the terrorists talking in my head would be considered the suspects to the crime. as if they're waiting or anticipating it. And then in which case they dig deeper to say, well, why so? And then it's like, okay, well, they're using this weapon to spy on people's finances, keep people oppressed, and maintain their level of their financial status, maintain their status quo, and uh, to to remain in control of the public, so not to get caught, right? And I was going to say something else, I just can't remember. I'm not high, by the way. He's pushing on my forehead. I don't smoke, I don't drink. So aside from that, moving on. So like a small spat between two um, family members that wouldn't necessarily convict you, but it's all little spots on your record. Like someone just sprinkled like they just sprinkled salt on your name, right? Or on an open wound. They opened the wound and they just poured a little salt there and like let it sit or simmer. Rather than to either, full-fledged, instead of robbing that person of their life and all the humiliation, just to go forward and doing what they're intending on doing anyway, which is murdering them, but they don't want to do it so bluntly. So that's the first. That is the first. That is the first stage of their strategy to basically dismember their victim. After which, then they make sure that they are looking for, because now they want to isolate them, and most of their encounters are obviously with family and friends, so that to isolate them and traffic them to people who are going to be a little more suspicious of them because of whatever is on their record. Like I said, employers and agencies who will kind of not turn them away, and to further their desperation, then in hopes that they'll seek, some type of employment that's very minimal, requires very minimal of them, but keeps them occupied for several hours, like cashier, and not even checkers. I would assume like very basic administrative work at a grocery store or at Walmart or something where it doesn't require too much, but they're making just above the poverty line, so they don't qualify for Medi-Cal or food stamps or or what else? Or sorry, Medi-Cal, food stamps, cash aid, and all of the above. Again, like I mentioned, housing, of course, and then and then to further this desperation and this fear, they've already separated you. You already have a bad reputation. Now they have you feeling insecure and uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, haha, you're in a shit spot. And if you go to the doctor and tell them, so at this point, they're instilling fear. You go tell a doctor, you go do anything of that nature, people are going to think you're a drug addict. You already have, a conviction of drugs, you have a conviction of violence, you have a conviction of, reckless driving, you have a conviction of, I said violence, right? Conviction of theft, right? So they've covered all four bases, basically. And people are just going to think you're a drug addict, piece of shit, trying to look for ways to do drugs while they're torturing their victims, like burning them, making their hair fall out. Okay, so they'll instill this fear like, oh, Rogaine's gonna, for me, this is what they do to me, like, Rogaine's gonna make you have a heart attack. Biotin is gonna make your hair grow all over your body. Um, uh, if you go seek medical professionals, everybody's going to think you're a drug addict. Prescription drugs are going to give you a heart attack. So they go on this ramp because they don't want you seeking, um, because they're trying to to steer you away from looking for medical attention, which after a year or so of providing that you've made every attempt to get the voices out of your head and haven't succeeded, then you can go apply for Social Security. And in which case, Social Security, you'll be most likely with schizophrenia, it's really not a hit or miss type deal. It's really a hitter every time, and they've said it deems necessary for financial assistance. And you can't apply for in-home supportive services because you have no record of any medical records. If you need help at home, cleaning, cooking, shopping, like doing anything, and to deprive you of Social Security benefits, to deprive you of. So we've covered every set. Like, this is all they do all day long. They're terrorists talking in my head. They want to deprive you of your rights to Social Security, your rights to disability compensations, deprive you of housing assistance, deprive you of welfare, deprive you of employment with that provides medical insurance. They want to deprive you of anything that makes you look like you were making an effort. And then to further, like, make your life such a struggle that you are desperately seeking housing, your own personal housing. Now you have to go fix your credit, right? And so they want you to have this worry that if you pack on any other loans, like a student loan, that you're barely making it above the poverty line, but not enough to pay for a student loan. So that way you're not applying yourself and trying to go after and your education. Like, they do all this bullshit all day long, all day long. And people, these targeted individuals who hear voices like I do, are eating it up. Swear to God, it's so much shit. They're they're manipulating them like nobody's business, and they're talking in my head too. And I know what's going on because I've been sitting here for the past year doing the complete opposite of what that community does, because I didn't see that not one of them has been able to come forward and say this has worked for me, with their opinions and their perceptions of how to handle it. And a lot of them are like, just ignore it, just ignore it. Wrong, 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 wrong. Not just that. The voices in your head want you, what they keep saying, because they're mine are Egyptian American Muslims, keep saying alamat azhat, meaning like they're going to do it until I'm so over it that I just want to ignore them. And they keep saying, we're not interesting, because what they, and in my head, they're disclosing the crimes they're committing, which is like bizarre. They're talking in my head, and I'm like, okay, get the fuck out of my head, basically. And, and so bluntly, and that's really how blunt it is when I'm here by myself and not making videos. And it's like this argument, like, nobody fucking knows that you're talking in my head. Nobody hears you. Why the fuck are you talking if you're like force feeding that you're real people in my head by making my hair fall out, making me swell, making me want to panic and run and chase and lie and say that you're real people. So, um, so to steer me away from what I really need to do to essentially help bring down a terrorist organization without defaming the name of my family, my friends, my church, and the progress the United States has made, um, getting these terrorists, putting them in their positions. So, um, all I've ever done, that from the moment that I realized, like, wait a second, this isn't a joke, because one of the terrorists in my head said, and they're so fucking grimy, excuse my language, but they sat there thinking like, oh, we can tell this bitch, I'm gonna say it the way they say, we can tell this bitch anything, like we could keep it so 100 with this, and they call me a whore all day long, all day long, and I don't have anybody here ever. Sorry. It's not the cutest. Sorry. Um, they're playing with my sinuses. So, anyways, like I was saying, um, um, what was I saying? Because they're pieces of shit. What was I saying? I was saying that, um, oh, to steer, well, I knew that, steer you away from everything. Um, so one of the women that talks in my head, and the voices are very consistent, but it's obvious they're like, they're original, like, these aren't like they're not using people's voices. They're using like combinations of voices that kind of merge together to create a new voice. And so they each have an assigned voice that is very distinct, because apparently there are other terrorists, and if they're behind this weapon, and which is a weapon of mass destruction, um, like there's a map somewhere, and it's in the Central Intelligence Agency's possession, that signifies when someone's being investigated using these telepathy technologies, and it kind of lights up, and it records everything that's being said onto this map. And anyways, so but um so that they so further, it records everything and keeps it in a database, and they have no access to those databases because it's a conflict of interest. If you're investigating someone and that's uh, your your opposition in court, then legally speaking, they have to play an unbiased part in the investigation in the United States, meaning that neither party, okay, they can't take sides on either of these parties. Okay, it has to be completely and utterly just and justified as to their conclusions to the case at hand. So now, um, I forgot that. So there's that, and that explains the talking for me. For you guys, it doesn't, but it explains the talking for me, because if they don't talk, you're not going to know which terrorist did what, and then it'll open up there'll be a much bigger investigation, and it'll be investigating the terrorists and investigating their victims. Really, it's torture to their victims. It's not an investigation. Like they literally wish they could just like take me out of my chair right here and force me to like force drugs down my throat, and and keep me in a drug house where obvious addicts aren't going to call cops, And that's all we want to, that's all we look forward to all day. Like, none of us want to go see the world. Like, these terrorists in my head are, they are fucking, like, the way, the sickness of, like, had to the, this is like to the extent of psychotic. I couldn't even begin to explain. I couldn't, there's no way I could detail it enough unless you've experienced it to tell you, like, the amount of disgust I feel for these bitches. I mean, these terrorists are the most legitimately disgusting human beings on the face of this planet. They are actual scum. Like, I have never heard anything like this. I have never, you wouldn't even imagine it. Like, you think it's a movie thing, and then it happens to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, these people really exist. So I thought Banaz, well, I cried over Banaz's story. I don't know if you guys heard of Banaz, but she was raped and hurt over and over again, and then finally they murdered her and they stuffed her in a suitcase. And all I can imagine is that she's thinking what I'm thinking right now. Like, how could people be so disgusting? And then I have to now turn around and try to prove that they're this disgusting. But people's imaginations get, the best of them to make them believe that there isn't a such thing. No, there is. These people are the most they're playing with they're making me lisp. Okay? That's a stroke they're causing me. These people are the most disgusting. They're giving me a stroke. Just saying, as I'm talking, and then they're highlighting my teeth because they want me to looking like I'm a drug addict. Like, I care what people think. Honestly, if you have a problem with me, just go look up my cures. Go look up, and go look up my. Go look up my criminal history. No drugs ever in my life. And no alcohol ever in my life. I actually hated drinking. I don't like it at all. I think it tastes like shit. I don't even like coffee. I think coffee tastes like shit. Um, but anyways, I like sparkling water, juice, smoothies. Like, that's my deal. Aside from that, not having it. I don't like smoking. I did it for a little while. It was the worst experience of my life. I was always gray in the face, not feeling well, yada yada yada. That, how that story goes. And I loved working out so much that I quit cold turkey. Sorry. They're playing with my eyes right now. See how they're making them so red. Um, what was I saying? This is going to be a longer video than I had anticipated. Um, what was I saying? I was saying something about, anyways, most disgusting. Like, this is the scum of the planet. Literally the scum. And anyways, this explains their talking, the records involved, and the maps that are involved, and having to have assigned voices, because I hear the same voices everywhere I go. It's not like they're new voices, and these people can use the voices and blend in with the background or imitate someone else like, they can't sound like my mom, or they can't sound like my sister, or they can't sound, because then it's like they're blurring the lines into someone else's investigation, their friends, their terrorist friends, and their friends They're terrorists, yes, but they're friends, right? But it's crossing the lines into their investigation, and so to each his own investigation, and they want to make sure they stay separate, and it's identified if any of them get caught. It's identified who is responsible, who is the responsible party. Um, so that's why I hear the same voices. That's why I hear the voices, and they're on the map, and they essentially don't have to talk, but they do to protect each other from each other, and at the same time to to also hold to these standards their terrorist organization has. And they're making money by, I mean, they're making buco bucks, obviously. These bitches can drill holes in the Middle East, in the Nile River, in whatever reservoirs for Egypt, water reservoirs, and mess up the water, which is why they were drinking shit water. So, because they want so badly to have like something to trade that other people don't have. And, anyways, so there's that. Now, here is where I came to the conclusion of, um, here is where I came to the conclusion that being brutally honest about hearing the voices was my saving grace. One of the women had sat there and like was like mocking the situation, like, why don't you just post that you hear voices in your head? Because I wasn't seeking medical attention. And the medical attention thing, let me touch base on that real quick. They also wanted to instill fear, like, oh, your kids will get taken from you. Oh, you're this or you're that or whatever they wanted to say. But then one of the days, right, because they're screaming in my head, saying, haha, you're a stupid piece of shit. And I used to like really worry that other people were like, if anybody finds out, they're going to think there are people outside, or they're going to think I'm arguing with someone outside when I wasn't. And so she said, why don't you just post it on your Facebook? And so I said, okay. And I did. And I felt relieved. And I was like, wait. And like people started sending me messages like almost immediately, like, I hope you're okay. Make sure you take medications, blah, blah, blah. The sweet things people say when they care. Targeted individual community wouldn't take it that way because they're so like unfortunately manipulated. It's sad. It's actually sad. So moving on, the woman was like, okay, or one of them was like, post it. So I was like, okay. And right after I was like, haha, well, at least they know it's in my head and it's not outside. And then I was like, and so if they were to ever argue anything or anybody were to think anything, I've already made it clear I hear you in my head. And it'll be you that is held responsible however that comes about, right? And then a month or two later, over that course of time, my daughter had said, or over the course of a month or two, my daughter had said, Mom, you're schizophrenic. Because I was crying at night, screaming at the mirror and talking because they say they can see through my eyes, they can hear what's going on around me. And they don't give a shit about my kids. They don't give a shit about shit. It's just, they're crazy. And so, um, so, my daughter was like, Mom, you're schizophrenic. And so I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm calling the CAT team. I called the crisis assessment team. They came out. Crisis assessment team, sent me they linked me up with my psychiatrist who I saw for a year and then, or who I've been seeing for now, actually a little over a year and a half. And they connected me with with who else? with my psychiatrist, with the psychologist, with my which who I just remembered I have to call and see if I can schedule an appointment sometime this week. And anyways, sorry, it's my sinuses are so clogged because they're drying them up. So I can't really have a conversation, so I sound disgusting and sick when I'm not. So after that, I went and applied for Social Security, and like I said, immediately after I was given, I was approved, like within that year, and not even, it didn't even take, it was like about 6 months that it took. And some people say it couldn't take up years, and they have to like actually fight the court and this and that. Mine was very straightforward. Went, took my medications as prescribed, told them, and they don't work. The medications don't work. But I tried anyway, and I'm not, arguing with anybody. And then it's like clear on my medical records that the voices I hear that I argue with are in my head. And so to eliminate that argument of, well, people are going to think you're arguing with other people outside. Ha ha ha, you stupid bitch. And it was like so much relief for me when I started to realize like these little conniving bitches have been sitting talking in my head, trying to deprive me of of the basic shit that I need so that they can get me, steer me into this bubble of like people that are doing drugs, that don't want to call the cops, that don't want to go to jail, that don't want to they don't want to work too hard, that want to like have no aspirations in life, and abuse each other until they do drugs, and like they have nothing left and they die, and they've burned every bridge, and they've just, it's psychotic, dude. The terrorists in my head are they're sick in the fucking head. And that is like the bare bones of like the level of disgusting that they are. I wish nothing on them but death. I want them sentenced to death every fucking day. All I want to do is sentence these bitches to death. I don't give a shit if they're talking in my head and they make my whole head go bald. I don't give a shit if these bitches will sit here and make me dizzy every day over my dead body. Okay? Will I allow, will I, will these terrorists not, I hate saying over my dead body, but over, what do I typically say when they say that? Will they get away or will they not get away? Whatever. Basically, over my dead body, the way we all know it, will they get away with this shit? I promise to God, I'm not fucking playing. Excuse my language. I'm so sorry. I'm a Christian. I have Tourette's at times because of the voices in my head that are terror. They're terrorists. They're Egyptian American Muslim women terrorists and their weird terrorist families living in California talking in my fucking head. They're psycho. These are the most psycho bitches on the face of this fucking planet. These are the most disgusting psycho bitches I have ever heard in my goddamn life. Swear to God. They kept saying, bald bitches, you bald bitches, about me, my mom, my sisters. They called my sister bug-eyed when she had Graves' eye disease. They were like, haha, your fucking dad died, bitch. In my head about my dad. Your dad was a monkey. Your dad was a clown. Ha ha ha. You stupid bitch. We totally just shitted on his whole fucking life. That's all they kept saying. That's all they keep saying. Like, as if they want me to tone down the fact that they're toned down discussing hearing them talking in my head. They don't want me going to church. They don't want me building a network, having witnesses that are like, okay, her hair fell out, so what? She has a little chipped tooth, so what? She's still a good person. She doesn't do drugs, because I don't do drugs and I don't drink. And over a course of time, you'll see that. It may not look like that because my hair looks so crazy, but that's because they made it fall out. But if you get to know me, you know damn well I don't do drugs and I don't drink and I don't smoke. And I prefer working out. I like talking business. I'm a realtor and a loan officer, and I love what I do. Um, I would go back to school for computer science because I find it fun and fascinating. He said fascinating in my head, so fascinating it is. I don't mind it. Um, I mean, I mind him talking in my head, but whatever. Um, but yeah, I do find it fascinating. And what else? Yeah, I mean, you'll just know I'm pretty cutthroat, and then everything else is about my kids. Like, I'll bore you to death with stories about my kids. It may be funny at first, but I'm like Kevin Hart to the point where it's like, it's it's obsessive. Like the amount of talking I do about my kids. Um, all I'm thinking about is their futures. What are they going to do? Where are they going to go? Who are they going to see? You know, where are they going to be? Who's going to be there for them? So that's what's on my mind all the time, all day long, all day, every day, and making sure to remain, despite my lapses in my processes, my thought processes due to the voices talking in my head, interrupting my thoughts. I've just I'm taking it easy on myself and saying it's about what I'm doing, not how fast or slow I'm going, not, it's what I'm doing, and that's it. That's it. And just to take it easy on myself because everything else will start to show. Like, I'm making an effort. I don't do all those toxic things. I don't allow toxic people in my life. I love my kids. I love my family. I love church. I love church people. I love mosque people. I love Buddha temple people. I love all people that worship. I promise you. I have like no, no lines that discriminate, between one gender or one race or one religious faith over another. That for me is like all water under the bridge. The terrorists I'm talking about, they just keep identifying themselves as Muslims, which I believe they are, because they want to steer the public into believing it's a Muslim in case the government were to officially like go to their doors, right, out of frustration with no evidence to their crimes, then they can say that it's a Muslim war. They're playing with my stomach and making me tired and playing with my sinuses and making my nose big, and they make my face swell. It's constant because they want me embarrassed to make videos, and I'm way past that. And if you can tell, like immediately he's suffocating me. Like all right here, I can feel it. It's rushing, like blood is rushing to my face. So yeah, and that is all that's going on. On the upside, I did go on a mini shopping spree, which was so much fun. I can't even lie. Shoes, I bought shirts, I bought pants, I bought skirts, I bought jewelry, I bought makeup, I bought everything I wanted for a long time, and I got my nails done, and I got them done round. They're a little, they grew out a little bit, but still, they're so flattering to my hand, so pretty. And I couldn't choose from a color, and so I chose all 5 colors, and actually 6 because my toes have one redder shade. Um, and I've had nothing but compliments. They're just so flattering and so soft looking and pretty. And I like it because I feel like they're elegant. And what else? My hair just keeps falling out. So the more I attempt to go to the gym, um, the more and work out and be healthy, the more they want to steer me right down back into um, getting nothing accomplished. And they keep saying, "Get the fucking picture, you stupid bitch." Ew, you just have no idea. I have 2 kids. I cry. I missed 7 years of my son's life because of these fucking whorebags. I want them sentenced to death. They're Egyptian American Muslim women terrorists, okay, living in California. So it's not all of them. It's a small group, and these bitches are too scared to share with anybody else what's going on because they will be convicted to death immediately. Um, what else? I was gonna say one other thing about how disgusting they are. The church thing, not wanting you around church people, not wanting you worshiping. All that also because they can see what I see, they can hear what I hear, they know what's going on around me, and um, there's like an AI aspect to it, and I guess it starts to record all your efforts, your mind attempting to get inspired, or so they're like the terrorists talking in my head. They're constantly trying to dull that inspiration that I get, or they actually do, and they occupy my mind so much that I am less inspired than I typically am. What else was I saying? I said something. I was going to say something about the gym. No, it's something else. I was gonna say that they're pushing me. They're pushing me into the wall. I know it sounds like I'm on drugs, but I promise to God, there are terrorists really using a mind control telepathy weapon, and they're living in California, and I want them sentenced to fucking death. So does Beyonce, so does Justin Timberlake, so does Obama, so does Donald Trump, so does Hillary Clinton, so does Camilla, so does Elon Musk, so does Lex Friedman, so does Joe Rogan. I mean, there are so many big heads that are after these terrorists. It's not even funny. So I'm feeling comfortable at this point, abused and tortured for sure, but comfortable knowing that at least justice will be served. They will get sentenced to death. This is not a freaking game at all, and not your typical investigation. They're going to use the same telepathy technologies on me that the terrorists use on me on them, and that is to make sure that none of them got away with the murders that they've committed and the crimes they're committing. And they keep saying they murdered my dad, and they murdered Amin and Sarah Sad, and Dr. Georgie, and George Reb, and Daniel Atkins, and the girl that was with him. All of these people, minus Dr. Georgie, don't have kids. Okay? Maro, no kids. Kiro, no kids. Shedi, no kids. Daniel Atkins and the girl, no kids. There was a girl in Bay Vista, no kids. Le'Veon, no kids. All like early 20s to 40s. Bernadette, no kids. David Basile, no kids. Who else? Heidi had a boss, and it was just her husband and her, and he lost his job and killed himself. No kids. I think she said no kids. My sister's friends in Tesoro, no kids. Of course, they were high school students. Who else? There's like only Amina and Sarah Sad. They murdered them. and said they framed Yasser Saad, their dad, for it. They said that they're responsible for the murder of Mark and Jacob Iskander, who were hit by a car, and framed Rebecca Grossman for it. Like I said, they wanted exactly the same thing. They came from the outside, so I'm a direct named suspect. So somehow the people they were investigating, like, they have to talk in my head. I'm like the last person they wanted to do this to, because I come from such a God-fearing family. Like, there is I fear my mom, okay? I fear my mom's like disapproval. If my mom says God isn't going to be happy with me, okay, to me, she's God. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, there's no arguing with her at all. And I'm not going to, because that is one beautiful human being. Um, and, yeah. So, and she's taught me everything I know. She's been the woman in my life. And oh my gosh, the superwoman that she is. She held it down for me, my sister. Sorry, I see something that's like an eyesore. Me, my sisters, my sister who has Graves' eye disease, thyroid. She had her appendix removed. They removed stones or something out of it, and she has diabetes, and she's been struggling with her sight and going through school, and had to buy property in Chicago because her ex-husband moved out there and wanted custody of their son, and just a whole mess of stuff. And then me and my schizophrenia, and my dad and his coronary heart disease, and coronary. They keep laughing because I said coronary, and supporting my youngest sister through med school. This is like, my mom is freaking superwoman. I don't give two shits what these terrorists say. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If it wasn't for my mom setting the example of what a real woman is, I swear I would have been lost in the weeds. And my poor daughter, she's not seeing what I'm after, and my mom too. So it's, for them, it looks and feels and sounds like schizophrenia. But for me, it looks and feels that way, but it's not that. I mean, someone hacked into my head. Someone has possession of my mind, literally. And so I want to just come forward with it and provide nothing but evidence, conflicting evidence. Like, okay, I've taken the meds. No, they don't work. I'm telling everybody so that there is no discrepancies at all as to who I was discussing when I was, mumbling under my breath, saying, go F yourselves, in my, to the voices in my head. Like, I want there to be absolutely nothing but me making it very clear there are people talking inside my head, not outside my door, that do not live here, that do not live within any close parameters to me, that don't even run in my circles, okay, of people. I want them, these psychopaths are talking in my head from a house, and I can somewhat see them in my head. I know it sounds weird, but they took me on a tour around their house. They explained all kinds of shit to me, the wars that we're having across the Middle East is about this weapon, and who's going to take possession of it, who's going to own it, and who's going to regulate it, to make sure when coming forward in front of the court, the world court, which is the judgment day, right? That they're they're of the most honorable of people, and to come forward and to bring forward the record. So there's a lot of like lots of lots of backlash from the terrorists because they don't want it to come forward, and the people that do want it to come forward are had to go through some serious measures to make sure that they have the evidence that they need to sentence these terrorists to death, and to bring those noble people forward as our king and queens and our like right wing, right hand, like president like type individuals to represent us and to be there for us. And so yeah, it just, anyways, it's been a longer video than I had expected, but yeah, that's everything that I can recall at the moment. I'm pretty sure I had something else on my mind I wanted to discuss about the women, or I don't know, I can't remember, but something about what was going on in my head that brought me to more conclusions of what's going on in the terrorist community. But I'm in the targeted individual community, not terrorists. But I just can't recall at the moment. But anyways, that'll be for our next video. I am about to go to bed because it's way past my bedtime, and I'm exhausted as a look, although it's a little exaggerated. I wasn't that tired, but yeah, nonetheless, I'm getting there. So, I sound so crazy right now. Have a great night. Thank you for listening if you sat this through. All right. Bye bye.